Hi, everybody. I'm Ted Everingham, a proud alumnus of Albion College, class of, oh, help me, 1961. And I'm the host of this series of Briton Conversations. And I'm pleased today to welcome Dr. Nick Gilpin. Nick, who's given me permission to use that name, not out of disrespect at all. Nick is the Chief Medical Officer at Beaumont Hospital, Grosse Pointe, just a few blocks from where I'm sitting. And he's also the Beaumont Health Systems Medical Director for Infectious Disease Prevention. You might expect that as an infectious disease specialist, Nick has been a little busy the last year. Welcome, Nick.
Good to be here, Ted. Thanks for having me.
I know you came from Horton, Michigan, in Jackson
Right.
County. I grew up in Jackson, Michigan, so I know where Horton is. When you were in high school in Horton, Michigan, did you ever imagine you would be interviewed on CNN?
No.
Was there even a CNN then? I don't know.
Not really. So, yeah, what a trip, huh? As I think back on where I was then and where I am now, wow, it's hard to even put it into words. I think the Albion thing made sense for me if I could go there. I was a small town kid. Jackson is not a big city, and Horton is a tiny town. It's one of those towns where everybody knows everybody's business, which may sound fun for some people, but when you come up in a town like that, it's not always that fun. Graduated from a very small high school, graduating class about 70 kids. So at that time, the idea of going to a school like Albion, which was my first choice, was intimidating, if you can believe it or not. Because the idea of going to a school with, a couple thousand students, to me was quite an upgrade. But I really appreciated having all of that close attention. It was how I was raised, knowing, my fellow classmates, knowing my teachers personally, really allowed me to thrive. And it was just, gangbusters.
Did you even consider, one of the mega schools, Michigan State, or any place else big?
Yeah, I did. And then when I would go to visit those schools, I thought, yeah, this looks like fun, but I just don't think it's for me. I had quite a few friends that went to Michigan State, and I had a few friends that went to Michigan, and they did very well. And I think that I would have probably done fine in an environment like that. But I also remember hearing a lot of stories from friends of mine about, when they would have difficulties, as you inevitably will in college, just having that line of sight to your professors and having that line of sight to someone who can sort of help, lend you a hand. That was never a challenge for me at Albion. I do understand that has been difficult for some people in some of the larger schools.
Well, our stories, this is about you, not me, but I grew up in Jackson. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college. I had applied at Michigan, and I had some good fortune that made it economically feasible for me to go to Albion. That's a different story, and someday we'll talk about it. But I'm grateful I had that change of course that sent me to Albion, because I was a kind of introverted, skinny 18-year-old kid. And I'm not sure how well I'd have done at Michigan. But
Yeah.
like you, I felt comfortable at Albion almost immediately with the students, although many of them were from different economic strata than I. But the faculty seemed to know me and care about me.
Yeah.
Your experience as well?
100%. It's a story that really, I personally think needs to be told more, because I was just with a friend, also an Albion grad, maybe a week ago, and we were just chatting, and he said, all my Albion friends are doing really well. They've got great jobs, they got great careers. And I kind of thought on it for a minute, and I was like, yeah, me too. I think we're all doing quite well. We've all become quite successful. And I think it really lends itself to that, starting out right at that age, that formative, age when you really could use that extra attention, and it really does help kickstart, what's going to probably become a good life, a good career for a lot of people.
Well, I certainly found that true. I suspect you could name at least a handful of faculty people that you felt very close to while you were at college. You majored in psychology.
That's right. I did. I was psychology with, I guess at the time they sort of called it a concentration in pre-med. It wasn't a major. But yeah, I remember a lot of my psych faculty. I remember Dr. Odo, Dr. Keys. I remember Dr. Wilson. I remember a lot of my chemistry professors, Dr. Harris, Dr. French. You know, great minds, great people. Really did a lot for me, and I really appreciate all the time they spent helping me get to where I am.
Well, I've been away from the school so long. I graduated so long ago that most of the names that you mentioned to me don't ring any bells at all. And I could do the same with you, but I won't.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that as you felt, I never felt at a loss for help if I were having trouble in a course or career choices, grad school choices. There was always somebody in the faculty to talk to me.
Yeah, same. And I appreciate that. I mean, that was important to me then. It's still important to me now. I've carried that with me. I try to be that person now to medical students that I work with, residents that I work with. I just, you know, I can't say enough for how important that was, you know, for me growing up.
It was a transformative time, I think, for both of us. And one of the interesting things, if I can share this, Dr. Nick Gilpin, who's the chief medical officer at Beaumont Hospital, Grosse Pointe, and the Beaumont Health Systems medical director for infectious disease prevention, a very busy guy these days. We graduated from Albion a little over 40 years apart. But the same things that attracted me to and that I remember Albion for are the same things you're just talking about.
Yeah.
It's as though that those 4 decades didn't exist, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard that experience echoed from, you know, a lot of other folks that I've known that have gone to Albion.
So somewhere along the line, you decided medicine was for you.
Yeah.
Was
that happened real early for me. I've wanted to be a doctor since I was a little kid. And it just crystallized, you know, as I got older. It was the fit. It was the thing I wanted to do. It was really where I positioned myself. And it was part of the reason why I went to Albion. Albion had a great, at the time, and I believe still does, have a very great placement track record for getting students from college into medical school. I went to Michigan State, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, which is pretty common for kids in medical school. You know, you kind of just see what tickles your fancy, I guess. And for me, I kind of liked everything. But the one thing I knew for sure I absolutely did not want to do was infectious disease. And so there's a funny story there, and I guess I'll tell the kind of abbreviated version of it. You know, infectious diseases is an extremely important specialty because it touches everything. Anything can get infected. You can be an orthopedic surgeon, you can be a cardiac surgeon, you can be a pediatrician. You're always going to have to deal with infections at some point. So I knew of the importance of it, but it just really didn't click for me in the classroom. So when in my 3rd and 4th year of medical school, when we got out into the wards and we were able to do some more you know, learning in the hospital setting, I knew I wanted to do an infectious diseases elective rotation to get a little bit more experience there. And Ted, night and day, you know, seeing it in person and seeing it, you know, on the wards versus seeing it in the classroom just blew me away. And I knew almost immediately that this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I'm really meant to do.
Albion published an article about you after it was the key was your early trial of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. But I love this statement, and I'm reading it now. As doctors, we don't really cure high blood pressure or diabetes, but in infectious diseases, you get to cure people. I was taken by that. I can understand it. Well,
yeah, I think it's something I still resonates with me to this day. Don't get me wrong. I love my patients. I love that I have ongoing relationships with a lot of my patients. I do take care of patients with chronic illnesses. But there's also something extremely rewarding about being able to see someone for a relatively short amount of time and take them from point A to point B and say, okay, it's all yours now. You know, you get to drive the bus again. And I think that that's something that, you know, that a lot of primary care physicians, unfortunately, don't get to see day in and day out, because a lot of conditions that they deal with, diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, a lot of those conditions are manageable, very manageable, but many of them are not curable per se.
I get it. I was taken by that quotation from the article about you. And again, this is about you, not about me. But I went to law school after Albion and thought I wanted to be a litigator. I was going to be the greatest trial lawyer ever. And I haven't been in a courtroom. I think the last time I was in a courtroom was to move the admission of my daughter. And that was 25, 30 years ago now. I just don't do that. I like things that have a beginning and an end, like you do. So you went to Michigan State. When did you link up with the Beaumont system, Nick?
When I was in my infectious diseases fellowship training, I trained at Beaumont, the mothership, which is in Royal Oak. And it's a 2-year infectious diseases fellowship program. And around the end of my first year, so midway through, a gentleman by the name of Ralph Cushing, who was an infectious disease physician at Beaumont Grosse Pointe, had sort of identified that he was going to be stepping down soon and there was going to be a vacancy. I didn't know anything about Beaumont Grosse Pointe. I'd never been there before, but my mentors were saying, you know, this could be a really good fit for you. It's a great little hospital, small community hospital, you know, in the Grosse Pointe community, which is a great community. And so I said, okay, sure, let's take a look at this. And I went there and I met, you know, who would eventually one day become my predecessor, Donna Hoban, the chief medical officer at the time. She really recruited me very aggressively to come there. And, you know, I hit the ground running. I started there in 2011. And, you know, fast forward now some 10 years later, and it's been a whirlwind for me, you know, doing infectious diseases clinically, but I've also gotten a lot more involved at the administrative level as well, which has been fun.
I think you described it to me shortly after you took the CMO job, the chief medical officer job at Beaumont Grosse Pointe, as like drinking from a fire hose.
It still feels,
yeah.
It still feels like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's a little different. I happen to know your predecessor quite well and admire her greatly. So you have big shoes to fill, and you're filling them nicely. So tell me about how you first became aware of what we've come to know as the COVID-19 pandemic. What was the buildup? I'm sure there are little hints of this, that, and the other thing, and suddenly the floodgates are open.
Yes. Well, I took the position as the system medical director for infection prevention on January 1 of 2020. About a day or so before that, we had identified this, you know, mystery virus in China that was causing a lot of respiratory illness that we would now, you know, one day know as COVID-19. You can go back and you can see videos of me on YouTube and other places kind of talking about this virus back then in very nebulous terms, really trying to calm people down. Listen, you know, it's a virus, it's a respiratory illness, but let's not worry until we have to. That was kind of the direction that we were under. You know, do the right thing, you know, wash your hands, etc. By about mid-February, after doing some preparation, you know, because that's what we do in infectious disease. We hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. It became pretty clear that this was not going to stay put. And, you know, then we pivoted to really making sure that we had a plan in place. We, Beaumont, had a plan in place to manage this once it came into our community. And by mid-March, we had our first cases of COVID-19. By, I believe it was March 16th or 17th, we had our first COVID death at Beaumont. And shortly after that, it was off to the races. Within a matter of a couple of weeks, we went from never having seen COVID before to being completely overwhelmed by it, to the point where we had over 1,200 COVID patients in our hospitals. And along with that, you know, thinking about it now, it feels like a million years ago, but the information that we were getting and we were learning about the virus was changing so rapidly, where what we would tell you on Monday might be dramatically different than what we would tell you on Friday in terms of mitigation or prevention or you know, protocol. And this was really upsetting for people. This was really upsetting for our staff. This was really upsetting for our physicians. They felt like we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And we had to keep explaining to people, look, this is science in motion. We're learning, you know, and you want us to learn. You want us to synthesize this data and try to make this work better for you. So we got, you know, fits and starts, but we made it through that, which was the biggest peak that we experienced, March and April of 2020. And then we spent the better time of the summer kind of bolstering our protocols and making sure that we were up to date. And then also really prepping for where we are now, which is this vaccine rollout.
It's been an amazing story to follow. And as a I'm not a healthcare provider at all, but it certainly affected everything I do, and going without seeing my children and grandchildren except on a screen like this, and the family gathering for Christmas at our home, which didn't happen this year. The family gathering in our home for Thanksgiving dinner didn't happen this year. And I'm hopeful of next year. I kept saying to myself, we're doing that this year so we can do it next year.
That's right.
We'll all be here. We'll all be here. The vaccine seems to be increasingly available. My wife and I, because of our age, were fortunate enough to have our vaccinations at Beaumont, by the way, in Southfield.
Good.
We both had number 2 last week. Feel great relief about that. You made headlines by being one of the first people to receive the Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah.
Was that, did you feel like a pioneer? Did you feel like you were being a role model? How did that come about? How do you personally feel about that?
I was honored, first of all, to have been selected by our executive team. They wanted me to be sort of the forward face of the vaccine, because I guess in some capacity I serve a double role. I am, not only am I a frontline caregiver, and I cared for many, many COVID patients over the last year, and I continue to do so. But I'm also a leader, and I think that it was an opportunity for me to really put my best foot forward and really show our team, our healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, that I trust the science and that I believe the vaccine is both safe and effective. So, you know, I was sort of putting my money where my mouth is. Now, if you ask me, Ted, you know, should it have been me? Should it have been a nurse? Should it have been some other person in some role? I think we could probably make a pretty compelling case for that. But all things considered, I want to be that ambassador. I want to be that that voice of reason to try to help promote this, because I believe, and I've said this many times, I just don't think we get to the other side of this experience without a vaccine, or many vaccines, frankly. I just think we're going to keep spinning our wheels. So whatever we have to do to make it happen, I'm all for it.
Well, and we saw that. If you watch the graphs of new cases, and they're up and down, depending on the events that people attend and so forth, and not taking precautions. If you want to hear rage, you should hear my wife watching the news and seeing a group of, especially young people, unmasked as though nothing were going. It's insane. It's insane. And I'm so grateful that we seem finally to be getting the vaccine and increasing availability. By the way, I commend your hospital for the system in delivering the vaccine to people like us. As I've told everybody who'll listen, both the process and the people are commendable. It was efficient. The people were cheery. One of the nurses In fact, the one who injected me last Friday with number 2, said to me that it was her first week on that service.
Yeah.
And it's the happiest job I've ever had. Isn't that neat?
That is cool.
That's really cool.
You know, and that's been a lot of folks' experience, is that the vaccine, first of all, you know, I'm not going to kid around here. I think that there is a major mismatch between demand, which is way up here, and supply, which we're still struggling with. There's no question, and we're still trying to learn to live in that space, and it's been difficult. But for folks that have been fortunate enough to get their vaccine, such as yourself, Ted, their experience has been overwhelmingly positive. It's slick. You know, we get you in, we get you vaccinated, we get you out, no goofing around. It's really a nice, tight process. And I could say that about Beaumont. You could say the same thing about other healthcare systems, and even some of the pharmacies now are getting on board. So
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who had his vaccination at another of the major healthcare systems in our area here in Grosse Pointe, and he said exactly the same thing. Wonderful process, wonderful people, and the huge relief it is to know that I've done all I can to protect myself, and now it's my obligation to continue to protect others.
Yeah.
And,
ultimately, I think we have an obligation to make it easier for people to get vaccinated. We want people to get vaccinated. We don't want to make this an onerous process that's complicated or convoluted. Right now, it is a little bit such, because you've got people signing up on multiple sites. You know, they're signing up through the county and they're signing up through their pharmacy. That's hard enough, right? Having to play the waiting game is hard. That should be the most difficult part of this whole process. Actually getting in and getting vaccinated should be silky smooth.
We'll get there. I think we'll get there.
Agree.
Seems to be getting, as you say, the key is supply, right?
Yep.
We get the supply. You've got the people. You've got the process. You're set up to do that. And then you can deliver as much as they can. You can deliver as much vaccine as they make available to you, I assume.
Absolutely. Beaumont has said that we could give up to 50,000 doses a week. Unfortunately, we just don't get that many. But as you say, with more vaccines coming up, getting approval, and hopefully the manufacturing process getting a little bit better, I think we'll get there. I'm hopeful.
Well, Nick, I started by saying I doubted when you were a small town high school student in Horton, Michigan, Jackson County, that you probably didn't dream of being interviewed on CNN because you rolled up your sleeve and had a COVID-19 vaccination. It's a great tribute to you, and I think it's a great tribute to our college, where you've ended up, where so many of us have ended up in a career that started that little campus in Albion, Michigan. And I know you're as grateful for it as I am.
I am, Ted. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us. I know you're busy. You've come across as though you're very relaxed about this whole thing. You probably are way behind by now. Nick, thanks so much for being with us. Dr. Nick Gilpin, Chief Medical Officer at Beaumont Hospital, Grosse Pointe. And I always have to look at the title, Beaumont Health Systems Medical Director for Infectious Disease Prevention, and a 2002 graduate of our alma mater, Albion College. Go Brits, Nick.
Go Brits. Yo Triumphi.
Yo Triumphi. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.